so I was around the music industry. Worked in Hollywood from the time I was 24 years old. What's going on with the executives and them trying to really enslave artists?
Well, they are enslaving artists, but artists are enslaving themselves because they're ignorant. And it's not their fault that they're ignorant. Well, it's not totally their fault they're ignorant. It's a system. You glorify the lowest level of life, and then you reward that person because you know that they never had nothing, so they're going to accept the crumb. Like, you couldn't come to me, not never, but you can't come to me right now and put something on the table I don't like, because you know that guy makes his own money, so he can tell you get the hell out the room. But you go to Chicago, you go to a kid who grew up, never had nothing, been hungry more times than he's been full, and you say, we're going to give you $10 million to go on tour and do all of the retarded stuff you want to do. Have sex with as many women as you could. All your friends could come, bring your guns, and live a superstar life and promote toxicity. And you're ignorant. And most of these people don't realize that people that's styling them, the people that's dressing them, the people that's that's doing this video choreography, these people are Satanists. So you think you living your best life and you promoting demonic behavior and images to your own people. So what really people got to realize is whoever controls imagery and sound can control your being. If I can control what you hear and I can control what you see, I can alternate your value system. They have been controlling people's realities by controlling their value system, by controlling the images and sound that you hear. They have only allowed criminal behavior to be promoted. They have only allowed deviant behavior to be promoted. And they have only allowed black people who promote a negative image to be promoted on TV. And that is what we believe, and that is what we value, and that is what we uplift. And they have been using a perverted value system to convince our community to corrode itself from the inside out, while taking no credit for that, and while getting no blame for that, and while benefiting from that, and bringing that back to the artists. You have artists who are unintelligent. You got people right now who don't know the difference between local court and Supreme Court. They don't know the difference. They don't know the difference between appellate court and Supreme Court. So they don't know the difference between they never signed a contract in their life. They don't know what a 360 deal is. So these people are taking advantage of our lack of financial literacy, our lack of business literacy, because they know at the end of the day of every core human is we just want a good life. That's it. And so most people that selling drugs are selling drugs because they want a good, because they hungry. Because if you wasn't hungry, you wouldn't be selling drugs. So you influencing people and you create an environment where you got to be at your lowest level of existence at all times. And then you offer somebody $20 million, which is really a crumb to you, to come further the influence of that existence. So they, just like the media, should be held accountable. They should be blamed. And they should be punished to the fullest extent of their actions for aiding and abetting what I like to call kidnapping of our conscience. And you stole our souls from us. You literally eliminated our ability to grow as a people because you told us we were somebody that we were not. If I tell, it's like parental negligence, and I'm in here. If I tell my kid, you're a bird, and you can fly, and they jump off the porch and they die, I'm going to jail for that. Because I did that, and it was evil to do. So if you got a race of people who don't want nobody to never talk about them, but they constantly telling us we crackheads, we drug dealers, we strippers, we hoes, we ain't nothing, and the most power that we get is speaking out against being powerless to white police, that's a crime. And if we're trying to carry out that behavior in real life, now what's the difference between them and me telling somebody, go shoot that man because you a blood, and I said so? There's no difference between a big homie in the ghetto and a big homie in a Hollywood executive office, except this person wears a suit and that person wears a bandana. So we have to delete these people out of our lives, and we have to teach our people to be literate, so that way when they run into one of these people, they can sidestep bad influence.
Take back the streets. It doesn't matter whether or not the person that is accosting your son or daughter, or my son or daughter, my wife, your husband, my mother, your parents, It doesn't matter whether or not they were deprived as a youth. It doesn't matter or not whether or not they had no background that enabled them to become socialized into the fabric of society. It doesn't matter whether or not they're the victims of society. The end result is they're about to knock my mother on the head with a lead pipe, shoot my sister, beat up my wife, take on my sons. So I don't want to ask, what made them do this? They must be taken off the street. That's number one. There's a consensus on that. Unless we do something about that cadre of young people, tens of thousands of them, born out of wedlock, without parents, without supervision, without any structure, without any conscience developing, because they literally, I yield myself 3 more minutes, because they literally have not been socialized. They literally have not had an opportunity. We should focus on them now. If we don't, they will, or a portion of them will, become the predators 15 years from now. And Madam President, we have predators on our streets that society has, in fact, in part because of its neglect, created. Again, it does not mean because we created them that we somehow forgive them or do not take them out of society to protect my family and yours from them. They are beyond the pale, many of those people. Beyond the pale. And it's a sad commentary on society. We have no choice but to take them out of society. And the truth is, we don't very well know how to rehabilitate them at that point. That's the sad truth. I'm the guy that said, rehabilitation, when it occurs, we don't understand it and notice it. And even when we notice it and we know it occurs, we don't know why. So you cannot make rehabilitation a condition for release. That's why in our system, there's the federal system, you serve 85% of your time. It's a shame, but we don't know how to rehabilitate. But there is a consensus, and I will cease. A, we must make the streets safer. I don't care why someone is a malefactor in society. I don't care why someone is antisocial. I don't care why they become a sociopath. We have an obligation to cordon them off from the rest of society, try to help them, try to change their behavior. That's why we do in this bill. We have drug treatment and we have other treatments to try to deal with it. But they are in jail, away from my mother, your husband, our families. But we would be absolutely stupid as a society if we didn't recognize the condition that nurtured those folks still exist. And we must deal with that.
Presumptive Democrat nominee.
So the term accomplice is a person who helps another commit a crime. Helps is a broad term, but yes, the mastermind is also an accomplice. If you mastermind a crime, you are an accomplice to that crime. Young Pharaoh raised the point, if I don't touch a gun, but every day I'm teaching you how to use the gun, encouraging you to pull the trigger and telling you who the target is, I'm programming you to see your target as someone who is worthless, and I desensitize you to harm them. If the color goes down, then I'm going down too as the accomplice. Let's apply this on a mass scale. There are a group of people, domestic terrorists, that are the accomplices to our genocide and our mass incarceration. They have set up conditions that have created behavior that has led to our demise. Please do your research on the '94 crime bill. Even Kamala Harris has admitted that this crime bill has contributed to mass incarceration. Now, you heard Joe say, I don't care how these people got this way. I don't care even if we contributed to them being this way. The bottom line is they go to jail, and that he didn't necessarily believe that rehabilitation was the solution. Joe's son, and I don't mean to be condescending about anybody who is an addict, because my heart goes out to drug addicts. It's a disease. But this man has never been in jail. The hypocrisy, the extent of the hypocrisy that you feel some people based off of their level of income, their poverty, are only suitable for jail, but your son remains a free man, is astonishing. And this is the leader of our free world. Black Lives Matter raised money off of Black pain. The front was a display of Black death by the hands of law enforcement to stir up emotions. This sparked people to want to riot. Black Lives Matter then took a large portion of the money raised, I believe close to $1 billion, and then donated it to Joe Biden's campaign. To me, this is criminal. This man, on a policy level, and I think that people really need to understand that that's what counts. It's the policies. Single-handedly, and you saw the passion. You saw how passionate he was just now in his 94 crime bill speech, and how much of an advocate he was to incarcerated people. Doesn't matter how they got that way. He was saying that they belong off the streets because they were a threat to his family. You use George Floyd in law enforcement killing Black lives as a means to gain money, and then donated a substantial amount of money to the person who was responsible for putting so many Black lives in bars and destroying Black families. And this man is talking about the safety of his family, doesn't care about the safety of our family, doesn't care that his policy took our fathers and our husbands out of our homes and left us unprotected and unprovided for, and has not made any remarks about reparations. And you've single-handedly contributed to our poverty. This is demonic. So this is a call to Black leaders that something needs to be done. Mass incarceration is a tentacle of white identity extremism, which is simplified capitalism. You guys are focused on the symptom of racism and not the root of the problem. Racism is a tentacle of capitalism. Our captivity is how they keep their wealth. You can complain all day, but the minute that you start talking Black wealth, you become a problem. Martin Luther King is an example of this. Malcolm X is an example of this. They were always targeted, but they became an immediate problem and a target that had to go away the minute that they started talking about Black wealth, Black communal wealth. So bottom line, this is a call to Black leaders in regards to mass incarceration and Black poverty. I want to let you know that this is a bigger pandemic than COVID-19. Black poverty is a bigger pandemic than COVID-19. I need our leaders to link up. Young Pharaoh, Kanye, Tim Wyse, Bryan Stevenson, and really everyone who's on the front line fighting for us. And we need to take this to the United States, the United Nations, period. Leaving this in the hands of corrupt politicians and corrupt leadership is not the solution. Debating all day or pointing out hypocrisy is not the solution. Our government needs to be put on the stand for domestic terrorism and the genocide of Black people. We need to take this to the UN. There will be no solution continuing the back and forth debate with people who are invested in our poverty and our genocide. This is a case that needs to be brought to world court. This is a violation of human rights. This is abuse of Black people. This is imperative that this is not handled as anything but Black genocide and war on Black economics. This is pivotal. This should be at the forefront of every discussion. We're at war. And it is absolutely necessary that we see it as such. This must go to the UN.